Have you noticed your body feels completely different in your late 30s and 40s? The same workouts and healthy meals you've always done just don't work anymore? In this episode, we're uncovering why. What's really happening with your hormones, metabolism, and stress response during perimenopause and beyond? And trust me, it's not all in your head. Women's Wellness Authority is your go-to podcast for discovering the hidden gems of holistic health and well-being. In each episode, we dive deep into the many layers of wellness, from mental and physical health to spiritual growth. Through insightful interviews with experts, healers, and thought leaders, we uncover alternative approaches, healing practices, and fresh perspectives that empower you to transform your life. Whether you're seeking innovative ways to heal your body, your mind, or nourish your soul, this podcast offers practical tools and wisdom to help you thrive in all areas of your life. Let's rewrite the rules of wellness together. Step into your power, reclaim your health, and discover what it means to truly thrive from the inside out. Hi, everyone. Before we jump in, I wanted to share that my conversation with Dawn was so informative and full of really important information. So much so that I felt inclined to divide this content into two parts. Part 1, which is episode 9, this episode, we'll talk about why your hormones, gut health, and metabolism shift so dramatically during perimenopause and beyond. And in episode 10, we'll discuss what you can actually do to support your body, like repairing gut health, cyclesyncing your nutrition, and creating hormone balance naturally. Enjoy this info we all need to hear to know that you're not alone. So grab that notebook, get ready to take notes, and let's dig in. Welcome back to Women's Wellness Authority. I'm your host, Diana Raskowski, and today we're exploring powerful connection between nutrition and women's health, especially during the midlife. As women, our hormones shift dramatically in perimenopause and beyond, changing how our bodies respond to the very same foods that we've always eaten. And that can feel frustrating when you're doing all the right things but still feeling off, whether it's low energy, stubborn waking, cravings, or mood swings. Joining me today is Dawn Strength, a certified integrative nutrition health coach with a background in science, sustainability, and functional nutrition. Dawn works with clients at Freedom Integrative Wellness in Fort Mill, South Carolina, where she helps uncover the root causes of chronic symptoms like hormone imbalances, gut issues, and inflammation through a whole person approach. Her own journey with autoimmune and gut health challenges sparked her passion for the healing power of food, mindset, and the nervous system regulation. Today, she combines evidence-based nutrition, lifestyle strategies, and stress resilience practices to help women feel vibrant and in balance again. In this episode, we'll talk about why midlife requires a new approach to eating, what cortisol and insulin resistance really mean for your health, and why a discovery and repair phase might be necessary before you can have more metabolic flexibility. Now, don't worry, everyone. We'll break down what all this means in simple and actionable items. We'll also dive into cyclesyncing. That's adjusting your diet to match your hormonal rhythms to reduce PMS, boost energy, and bring your body back into balance, whether you still have your cycle or you don't. And if you've ever felt like your body changed overnight, or you're ready to truly understand how to eat in a way that supports your hormones, this episode will leave you feeling informed, validated, and empowered to take the next step in your health journey. So let's get started. Hi, Dawn. Welcome to Women's Wellness Authority.
Hi, Diana. Thanks for having me.
So I always like to start my conversations with my guests to get a better understanding of their story. Can you tell us how you became a nutritionist?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, like a lot of health and wellness coaches, we transform our own lives through the power of functional and integrative nutrition and supplements, different therapies. And we recognize how validating it felt, but also how powerful it could be to give that back to someone, give time back in their life, give joy back to their life. So my story basically started in college. I was playing soccer and things just started to feel off. Brain fog and pain primarily, and then eventually fatigue. I ended up quitting soccer, just focused on school, graduated my undergrad, decided that I was going to go back for grad school. And then once I graduated, made a big shift in my own life. Moved from where I was in school in Pennsylvania to North Carolina. I worked a demanding job, didn't really pay well. There was a lot of toxic exposure, probably as well.
Like environmental exposure?
Yeah, yeah. So I
Okay.
did environmental engineering and I was basically their field person. So I would go out to old abandoned gas
Oh, wow. Okay.
stations and take water samples. Aaron Brockovich, but way less glamorous. Basically, fast forward 2006, I was like, I can't continue to feel like this, started to dive deeper. I'd basically done all the traditional medicine type route exploratory options. So I had been to a neurologist, I went to a doctor of osteopathy, I had a rheumatologist, and the only two things that came out of it was one, you have fibromyalgia. That explains the pain, but we don't know the origin. And two, I think we should do exploratory brain surgery. And I thought, no way.
Oh,
This is
wow.
going to be my life. This isn't going to be my sentence. And I ended up digging around and found someone locally, a Chinese medicine practitioner. And she was the first person to suggest food as a root cause. And she said, let's do an elimination diet. A month and a half later, I had lost 17 pounds and all the pain was gone. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. Like that through which we'll kind of talk about that kind of repair and seeing your body's response. Gluten was by far probably the biggest trigger that I had. Corn, tomatoes, dairy. So I stayed off all of it for 3 months, took herbals, went through a repair, and then, basically got to this place where, gosh, life looks a lot more optimistic, a lot more possible. I didn't have the pain. And consequently, I think just made some bigger changes in my own life. And then when I lost my job during COVID in the corporate world doing sustainability, I thought, what better opportunity now to kind of make that shift? Had that talk with the husband, finances, what could we do? Went back to school. And yeah, in late, I think it was 2021, I finally graduated from Institute for Integrative Nutrition and then just started my own practice right away.
Yeah, and you have so much incredible knowledge about the body and supplements and the balancing of like what should be in your cells. I've learned so much in working with you over the last 6 months. And I had a similar experience where food was a massive cause for inflammation in my body. And I didn't think that was the case either. I lost like 20 pounds when I did the elimination diet and realized that gluten's a trigger for me, corn, soy. I still have not yet tried a piece of normal bread since, but I'm afraid.
Which is normal. I think we don't talk about it a lot, but food traumas are definitely things that can happen when we have all these sensitivities.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite part of your job?
I think it is just guiding clients to be able to connect the dots between their symptoms and potential root causes. I think, but most importantly, maybe helping them to rebuild trust in their own body. Because for a long time, I think people just made me feel like something was wrong and my body is at fault, and rebuilding that trust so that clients can kind of realize that healing isn't just about food and being satiated, but it's also about safety. Like food is actually a part of safety and where mindset and self-compassion comes in, and like seeing those light bulb moments when people are like, you know what? My body is pretty good. And yeah, now I understand those kind of root causes. Those light bulb moments are pretty
Yeah,
cool.
and thank God you listened to your gut and your intuition and did not do that brain surgery.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that was an option.
I can't believe that there are doctors that suggest that and that there probably are people that go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I
Well, because
don't,
they don't know any better, right? And you felt pulled to just dig deeper, and I think that's, like, the whole reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I want people to on here that are in your position that get told, "Let's do brain surgery," that dig deeper and find the root cause of things, right? And
yeah.
you're in a job now where you're helping people discover what that root cause is, so
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with a doozy of a question. And I know, like, myself and all of my girlfriends are wondering. So, can you please help us make sense of what is happening with our bodies as we move into our late 30s and 40s?
Yeah.
Because so many of us are wondering why the same workouts, the same consumption of food or diets
Yeah.
that used to work for us. I can't even say in our 20s. That was a long time ago, but in our 20s or 30s is suddenly just
Mhm.
not giving us the same results. So, can you maybe give us a sense of what's really going on? What's the root cause?
I guess to simplify it in one word, hormones, that's gonna be the biggest
Yeah.
thing, but it's not just, I think, the hormones that everyone thinks of. Obviously, I think estrogen comes to mind for most people, like, "Gosh, am I in perimenopause? My estrogen's gonna decline," but it's usually a lot more than just that hormone. When we think of hormones over our life, we have this period where we go into puberty, right? Think of it as like a bell curve. Things start to tick up, everything's weird and confusing. Then we go through this stable, mainly stable period where it's predictable. Our cycles come predictably. We can tell when we're about to get our cycles. And then we hit like late 30s and 40s and things get wildly erratic. I saw the other day like a meme that someone said it's your cougar puberty. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way to put it, but
Yeah.
it's wild because, yeah, estrogen is going to start to decline, but so is progesterone, so is testosterone, but they all three of them do it in wildly different ways. But I guess the overall idea is as they start to decline, it affects your metabolism, your fat storage, your insulin sensitivity. And we'll kind of like dive deeper into each of those, but we start to have less capacity. So lower estrogen starts to lead to fat being stored in the midsection. It's a kind of a protective mechanism. We talk a lot about safety too, but you start to burn fewer calories when you're at rest, right? Even though you've been doing the same things. Additionally, the other hormones, cortisol. So that's the big one. It has this really intricate relationship with progesterone.
Can you talk about what cortisol is? Because a lot of people might not know. I feel like it's one of those really, like, flashy words that's thrown around now, like, "Oh, do this to lower your cortisol." It's like, what is cortisol and what's its function in the body? Because I learned a lot from you around that and didn't really realize how important. Because you always hear, "Try to de-stress." And I'm like, "Okay, like, there's only so many things I could do," but now I understand actually what that stress is doing to my cortisol levels, and
Yeah.
if those are high, what that's doing to my body. So can you kinda just take a step back and explain what cortisol is?
Yeah. So cortisol is a hormone. It's produced by the adrenal glands. And basically, its role is to protect you. So it's spit out in times when or spit out, this is, I guess, an overgeneralization, but there's an output of it when the body doesn't feel safe, which we'll talk even more about, but definitely if we don't help the body feel like it's getting some sort of nutritional input, it's gonna initially put out more cortisol thinking that the body's in danger, something's wrong. And over time, as that cortisol maybe continues to be high, and not just from food, too, right? So, yes, outside stressors, running the kids to camp or to class and they're late and you get stressed. There's a deadline you have to meet at work. The body is going to put out more cortisol as a response to that stress to kind of hopefully allow you to meet the demands and the needs. But what happens too frequently is it stays up for too long. And then we start to see this inverse happen where our bodies are just depleted. There's no cortisol. And so we have this drop, and our bodies always, that's usually when we're always going to feel fatigued. It's been high for too long. And so
And that was
cortisol,
my case for sure.
yeah.
I think I was, like, in fight mode
Hmm.
24 hours a day, so my levels when I did my blood work were the opposite you shared with me of what they should be. So I was super high in the morning, and by the end of the day, I tanked. And it should be quite the other way around, right?
Well, we should have like a higher cortisol in the morning. Like it
Sorry,
is.
then I was the opposite.
Yeah.
I was low in the morning and shut up, which would make sense because I probably rested and I woke up, I was low, and then, like, getting the kids to school and then doing my job and then doing all the
Yeah.
probably the stress just increased as I went
Yeah.
throughout the day, but all the work that we did actually reversed that pattern to what I described it should be, right? Which is higher in the morning and then teetering out.
It's like a ski slope. We want you to wake up feeling energized. You can take on the stresses, you can do those things. And then naturally, kind of as the day goes on and the sun starts to shift, it should start to go down to prepare you for a restful sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
To your point, we wake up burnout and then we're that wired but tired at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it is that opposite curve
You're
for
sort of pulling from an empty tank
Mhm.
day after day after day after day.
Yeah, and people will just kind of put on a brave face and go about it and think that, "Yeah, yeah, I'll take care of my stress whenever I can find the time," but it takes an intentional shift. It takes being uncomfortable to kind of make these changes and start to get the body back to where it's comfortable and happy.
And I don't know what really triggered for me.
Mhm.
Maybe because I'm in my early 40s and I'm in perimenopause, and maybe that's what the trigger was, or it was the food. But I think eventually, like, the culmination of that cortisol being as high as it was for as long as it was, I think really
Yeah.
did me.
Well, our bodies do naturally become more sensitive as we get older, right? So as our estrogen's dropping, your body is going to become more sensitive to stress and cortisol overall. That's what promotes that like visceral fat storage. That's what starts to disrupt the sleep, increases our cravings. And then you throw in diet, right? So we have kind of always this diet culture, but diets that are low and too low in calories, that's probably primarily what I see is people are not eating enough.
Mm.
Immediately, our body doesn't feel safe. Immediately, the cortisol rhythm's gonna go off. So, people eating too little or doing extreme fasting every day is really going to spike cortisol and lead to those plateaus where people are like, "Well, intermittent fasting used to always work. It's not gonna work now because 'cause you've stressed your body out."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, so sorry, I interrupted you before when I was asking you to dig in a little bit more to cortisol, but
No, no, because that is kind of that's perfect segue. Because cortisol, I always think of or I use this kind of diagram for clients in their mind or try and help them envision like a funnel, and so you have all your sex hormones, and then at the bottom of the funnel, that's where you see insulin and that's where you see cortisol, and to me, those 2 things are tugging in like, there's this shift that's always trying to have, like, a power struggle between your sex hormones, but it's all usually related to cortisol.
and those hormones are
That's
estrogen, testosterone,
progesterone.
and progesterone.
Yep.
Okay.
5 hormones in total, those 3, and then cortisol, insulin. Those are I mean, that's what we're really dealing with as we get into our late 30s, early 40s, perimenopause, menopause. It's just a shift in them. They change everything, like you said, from disrupting your sleep, cravings, your muscle mass is gonna start to naturally start to decline too, and that will help lower your metabolism in turn, that's another aspect. And then we haven't really touched on insulin yet.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that because
Yeah.
that I think insulin, I think diabetes, diabetic people, like, that is sort of where my brain goes, so I had no idea that played a role in my hormones.
Yeah. Well, estrogen kind of naturally helps maintain insulin sensitivity. And again, as it declines, the body is going to become more insulin resistant. So you're more likely to store carbohydrates, which think of that as carbohydrates are glucose. Glucose is your fuel source. So it starts to store those carbohydrates as fats, primarily around the belly. Start to get those blood sugar swings. We crave more sweets. And we can talk about how to shift that. But that's where insulin really kinda comes into play. Insulin resistance, it's easier to gain fat, harder to burn it once we get it.
And so why is it called insulin resistance? Is it like my body can't break down the natural sugars or carbs? Like, it's more resistant to processing them the way they should be processed?
So insulin's kind of its role is to in energy regulation and how we move glucose from your bloodstream into your cells, where it
Okay.
can be used for fuel. So that's kind
Okay.
of the primary role of insulin. But when we overconsume, whether it's carbs or just sugary things, or we eat irregularly, or we have this stress, the body kind of starts to produce too much insulin.
Oh,
And
okay.
over time, that's what we call insulin resistance, where cells stop responding, if you will, to how to effectively use the insulin because there's just too much of it. So it leaves that sugar in the bloodstream, doesn't get into the cell.
So interesting. So that's and because of all the other changes with the hormones, that is a greater chance of being insulin resistance being higher because of
Yeah.
everything adjusting. So if I always ate the same way, but then all of a sudden my insulin resistance is increasing, which I think is what you guys saw in my blood work,
Yeah.
and there was concerns there, so we did, like, more digging, but that's probably does that make sense? So, because
Yeah.
the other hormones are working in a different manner, that
Yeah, it's
what
just
I'm putting in my body makes it matters way more.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, because we don't have control over estrogen and necessarily how it starts to decline. It's gonna decline. That's just part of woman's evolution, a
Yeah.
woman's evolution. So it's gonna decline. We can't stop that, but we can kind of help it. And we have that declining estrogen, which is just kind of normal. That's what happens to women. Its decline is what reduces that cell's sensitivity and that cell's ability to uptake the glucose from the bloodstream and utilize it. So we support it by maybe making better choices in the types of carbohydrates we put in the body. Then we won't have as many energy crashes, bloating, weight gain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting because now if I reflect, I mean, I used to crash in the afternoons. I
Mm.
could feel myself, like, drifting, and I'd have what I thought was a good night's sleep. I'm like, "Why am I so tired?"
Mhm.
Wow, that explains it. I think that that was all really, really helpful to kinda give us a foundation and a little bit of a background. And in my intro, I talked about a discovery phase and a repair phase. Can we talk about what you call the discovery phase and what
Yeah.
really gives us that understanding of where our body's at?
Yeah, so everyone should kind of take stock at some point in their life, maybe, every decade even, as to how their body responds to its primary source of energy, and that's the food we consume. So there's always a period where we should be evaluating that. And the easiest way, I think, to do that for a lot of people is looking at something like an elimination diet or a detox diet, we call it. And there's many different ways you can do this, but the goal is primarily like we pull out foods that are most likely to be offenders as far as inflammation.
Hmm.
Keep them out for a period of time and let your body naturally start to deal with inflammation. Hopefully it brings it down. Look at putting in tools to help further reduce it while we're in this kind of discovery phase, figuring out what's going on. And that maybe we're doing lymphatic massage or we're doing like vibration plates. A lot of these biohacks that you hear about, they do have a
Saunas.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Saunas, red light. I mean, all those things, they have the ability to help bring down inflammation. So we can incorporate them while we're in this period of kind of pulling out offensive foods. The other option, I will say, I had kind of a love hate with food sensitivity testing for a long time because it was always like this point in time evaluation of what's going on in the body. And it used one marker, one immune marker. But we utilize one now where I work that has the ability to test in four different immune function areas. And so we get a much clearer picture. Is this an immediate sensitivity? Is it a true allergy? Is it, one of the other complementary immune functions that we're seeing go up? And so that could be a really helpful tool too. I think the difference is time and money, right? Like,
Mhm.
time and money do you want to put into it? And some people really love the idea of feeling the differences in their body and not just seeing it on a piece of paper. Maybe they just really want it to see keep a journal of how their body's doing during that kind of removal phase almost. So we keep foods out, whether you do the food sensitivity testing. And again, if you were going to do it, I'd look at one that's like a food antigen test in more than one area, or we do this kind of elimination diet, pull foods out. And then we go whether it's a month, that's kind of think what you and I had done, like a month.
Yep.
In some cases, we may decide to do 3 months of, that elimination, but we start to reintroduce at the end of that, and that's where we pick those foods in their whole form, as close to their whole form as you can. So say it's corn, I tell people, like, have grits in the morning. Maybe you have corn on the cob at lunch, and then maybe dinner you are having a tortilla, but it's a minimally processed one. It may just
Mhm.
or one that you even make at home, but you have 3 servings of that food, and then you kind of journal and you wait for 2 days and see what shows up. And most people are like, I didn't have diarrhea or I didn't have constipation, but it goes much beyond that. And that's where, for me, gluten was all pain. So as soon as I reintroduced it back in, it was like I felt stiff and achy and just I had a headache. So it can go beyond digestive function feelings. It can be neurological. It can be skin based, right? So rashes, it can be hives, it could be just flushing, headaches, joint pain. So you're testing everywhere. If you don't have those symptoms in 48 hours, then we move on to another food to try and reduce. But if you do, then we want to keep it out probably another 3 months. Work even heavier on the repair and inflammation phase and try it again. 3 months, you try it again, still an issue. It's probably a long term avoidance.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what it was for gluten for me. Everything else is pretty much back in my diet now. But gluten's just one of those things that stayed out long term. That gives us the insight to know like your body's particular response to a food and how that impacts your inflammation levels.
I'll say I've done so many like clean eatings, but they're a week or 2 weeks. I never did beyond 15 days.
Mm,
And so the 30 days was really eye opening for me. And you had shared that it takes up to 2 weeks for something you consume to like fully process out of your body. So say I have corn,
yeah.
like that allergen will stay. I don't know if allergen's the right word, but that food would sort of stay in my system, can cause inflammation within those 2 weeks. So if you're doing an elimination diet and you cheat one day, that, like, sets you back another 2 weeks, right? I thought that was really, really interesting because when I would do the clean eating, I'm, like, black and white. So if I did clean eating, like, I did clean eating. I wasn't someone who's like, "I'm just gonna have a little cracker just to, like, satiate this, like, craving." But that was really interesting to me because really eating clean for 2 weeks was always a challenge, and then when I had 30 days, I was like, "Oh god, how am I gonna do this?" But then when you told me if you sneak anything, it's gonna restart the clock, I was like, "Okay, absolutely, absolutely not." And I'll say that I noticed absolutely no change in my body the first 2 to 3 weeks,
Okay.
and then after that month period, it was crazy. The inflammation went way down. That's when I started seeing my weight slide off. So I just share that with everybody because that time frame is really, really important to give your body its natural way to process out the inflammatory triggers and then start to heal on its own. And I mean, I healed with supplements too, which we'll talk about in the repair phase, but just something that I walked away from and I've done like tons of education on exactly what we did, but that was really, really eye-opening for me.
It does differ for some foods. It can be longer, but yeah, usually that 2 to 3 weeks. It's kind of like they tell you it's 21 days to create a habit, right? And something new. I kind of will compare it to that for some people. So, I mean, bare minimum, it's 21 days, but let's give it a full month at least. And based on how people are doing, yeah, sometimes we do draw it out for longer because
We did 3 months almost for everything because I reintroduced and my body was like, "No, thanks."
yeah, and even stuff like seed oils, man, that minimum, like 4 to 5 months usually for that to get out of the body, and it's not that we're specifically testing for seed oils, I think we unequivocally across the board know that those are not good for the body.
Can you describe when you say seed oils, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think of any sort of like plant-based oil that's been gone through a manufacturing process to pull the oil out of the plant for the most part. And so the ones I tell people to look at are the three C's, the three S's, no corn, no cottonseed, no canola oil, no soy, sunflower, safflower, vegetable oil. And it's mainly because they go rancid, especially at higher temperatures too. So you're not getting what we're looking for is beneficial omega-3s. Well, you're not getting that when you heat those up
Yeah.
and process through which they're made, they're already kind of rancid.
So the oils you could use would be olive oil.
Yep. Olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, ghee. And then if you've gone through like the repair phase and you're good with dairy, grass-fed butter is great. Tallow is great.
Thank you, because I always get confused, but that's really easy. I'll just think about the ones I can eat, which is avocado, olive
Yeah.
oil, coconut oil,
And that's the key, I
and
think,
ghee.
in the whole food, I guess, elimination diet for people is they get scared about the idea of how long it can be. And I said, well, the focus is on what you can have. Because, man, we're opening up a whole new world of things you probably haven't tried, but you're going to have to be there for this next month in order to have success. So, I mean, how colorful of a salad can we make? Or you don't like raw vegetables? Okay, let's think of a bowl that we can put together. But focusing on what you can have is makes it so much more successful. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you understand why your hormones, stress levels, and metabolism shift so dramatically during perimenopause and beyond. But here's the good news: your body isn't failing you. In part two, Dawn will share how to actually support your body through gut repair, better nutrition, and simple hormone balancing strategies you can start right away. Make sure to listen to the next episode. It's where everything comes together. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, but most of all, stay well. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation inspired you, shifted your perspective, or sparked something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it the most. Have a story of your own or something you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Women's Wellness Authority. Please note the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your health and wellness decisions. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone.